Welcome to it's session number 23 for Prophecy for the Last Hour. I'm your host, Elizabeth McGee, and so we're going to just get right back into the Word of God. I'm going to talk tonight about my title, How Herbs Are for the Healing of the Nations, and contrasting it with a verse in Revelation that says all the nations will be deceived in the last days because of the sorceries of Babylon. And so I'm going to kind of try to delve into both sides of that coin, because they kind of are related and are the same coin, and see where the word, or what a deeper understanding we can get. So I do want to say, I wanted to open with a verse here in Zechariah, and it's, let me read it, and then I'll sort of flesh it out. But this is Zechariah chapter 8, verse 20. It says, "This is what the Lord Almighty says. Many peoples and the inhabitants of many cities will yet come. And the inhabitants of one city will go to another and say, let us go at once to the Almighty, to entreat the Lord and seek the Lord Almighty. I myself am going, and many peoples and powerful nations will come to Jerusalem and seek the Lord Almighty and entreat him." And then in verse 23 it says, "This is what the Lord Almighty says, in those days, 10 men from all languages and nations will take firm hold of one Jew by the hem of his robe and say, let us go with you, because we have heard that God is with you." And this verse is interpreted many times as an understanding that, and it's a really kind of a favorite Messianic verse, and I don't blame them, because it says that, Messianic Jews is what I mean, that in the last days, people are going to be embracing Judaism in a sense for answers. I mean, that's kind of like how the almost common denominator can say. Because what is happening, what's coming to understanding, this is my personal experience, because the more and more deeper research I do, understanding it, I'm realizing it's really true. As Paul said, that Judah, if you listen to my teachings, I understand the house of Judah, which is the demographic nation group, the southern kingdom that is in the land over there, the Jews today as we know them by and large, have been keeping alive the largest body of ancient Hebraic literature in the world. It really is them. I mean, Judeo-Christians, we come out of that root. So that root system they have. Now, there is about as diverse as you can get, which is fine, because to me, God has no problem with diversity. Diversity, if you look at nature, look at all the flowers blooming right now, God has no problem with diversity. Sometimes it trips us up, but I'm convinced it does not trip up Yahweh at all. So, to me, it's true. And the more I read, I'm kind of reading all sorts of, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, or all the Bible, the whole thing, Genesis to Revelation, read many times, or taking the Pseudegraphia, or the Deuterocanonical books, extra biblical books, the lost books of the Bible. These are all words and phrases. If you get into this, you'll begin to get a bigger picture. And it's fascinating, it's awesome. And now I'm into the midrashes, trying to understand the sages of the ages, what they're saying, the Talmud and some of these, because the big body of Jewish understanding is kind of broken down into different camps. And trust me, they don't agree on everything. It's fine. But there's unbelievable information, and this is the root of, and this is where the Messiah came from. So my whole thing is, and I tell this over and over again to Gentile Christians, there's no such animal. We really are the lost sheep of the house of Israel. We are fulfilling this verse to the T, coming back, and the more and more, and there's a huge movement today, and more than has ever happened. This is an end time, but people are going back to their Hebraic Jewish roots. And they're finding that there is such a depth and understanding, and that we have really kind of gone a little bit of far field, and we need to come back. So that has been my experience, because some of the information I'm going to talk about tonight has been just so deepened, and I get such a bigger picture of this thing by reading. I believe that it's okay to read. Paul says to read everything, test it, test all things, and then hold fast to that which is true. If I can eat the meat and throw out the bones. I don't. So anyways, and when you get into healing, and now let me just say this, okay, so Well, I don't know what to say. It's always true, like Dickens says. It's always the best of times, and it is always the worst of times. And in the health field, we're made of body, soul, and spirit, there is really a lot going on. I say we're in a propaganda war, and there's a huge, in my opinion, of many people, a propaganda war going on in terms of the health industry. What is good for us? What is not good for us? Why is all these cancers and autism and all these things coming at us relentlessly day after day? Now, I know there's many advances in sciences, but there's also a flip side to this. There's something going on. It's a war, basically, but God will give us wisdom. This is what he says, in his word, he will give wisdom, and you can have insight, understanding, discernment, and then you can make sound judgments. So let's go to the scriptures and see where we could get sound judgments out of this whole area of topic and why it so relates to the end times. But it shouldn't come, this is my opinion. Where should I jump off? I'm just kind of thinking to myself. Let me give you some of the history of this. The book of Jubilees, okay, which is a text. Now, in the Bible, we're very familiar with a verse that says that the herbs are made for the healing of the nations, okay? And herbs, it's a word, it really is the word grasses, but it's kind of plant life. The plant life on the planet is given for the healing of the nations, and it's also given as our primary food source. Before the flood, it's pretty understood that people, that the consuming of meat was sort of given by God to Noah after the flood. And that has a whole little history around it, and everybody agrees on that even. But talking about plants, okay, and that they are great curative, and there are great health benefits to a plant-based diet, which most of the world has lived on for thousands of years. But in the book of Jubilees, which is a book that was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that has, actually was in the Ethiopian, the Coptic Ethiopian canon. They have kept that along with Enoch and some others, so it's very verifiable, a writing that the sages knew of, read, referenced. It was in their radar, okay? And it's coming onto ours, and it's a wonderful book, and people should read it. Most people who read it and study it understand that it has even a higher level of holiness to it. Sometimes I think it's like going to, what we get is a little bit watered down, a little kind of made to fit the masses. But, Jubilees is straight out of the Lord. It's like, there's, you walk, it's a pretty straight and it's a pretty narrow walk. But anyways, there's this very interesting story about after the flood. Because what's coming out with knowledge today is that because I've said this before, and this is my opinion, and it's absolutely confirmed all the time. History before Alexander the Great, which is about 350 BCs, you will find has been really skewered and kind of distorted and kept from us a lot of things because for reasons of the propaganda war, of where we are, and this thing with linking of evolution came on there, like that we're coming from these apes. That is not the worldview of the ancient world at all. They weren't apes. So let me just say that right up front. So Jubilee is, in chapter 10 of Jubilees, first I'll tell you, there's an unbelievable story, and explains a lot. But it says that after the flood, and I've taught on this is my opinion, this is become on the radar of most serious Bible students that are going back and looking at this. We had a genetic problem going on, watcher angels, sons of God cohabitating with the daughters of women, creating all sorts of hybrids and race, a race of giants and things that God did not, this was not part of his plan of design. And the birds, the beasts, it says everything in nature was sinned against. In other words, there was recombinant DNA going on in the creation all over the place to the point where God said it's just totally and completely out of control. And it led to, if they'd done a better job at combining the DNA and coming up with great, beautiful things, that's one thing, but was not the case. World became violent, evil, out of control. So, but there's a story that after the flood, Noah, his 3 sons, and repopulating their wives, things are beginning to multiply again, there was a problem. And Noah prayed to God, and he said, God, there's a problem here. My sons are being led astray, and I don't really, you got to help me here. I need some information, knowledge. I need some wisdom and understanding how to deal with this problem. So in Jubilees, God commands, and one of the, in the text, what they're saying, that there was a whole new class of, sort of like a demonic class of entities that were really leading the people astray again. And this was sort of a new thing now. Noah didn't know how to cope with it. One of the things is that God commands, he teaches Noah, and new diseases were coming on. See, this is after thought. That's a whole new world. So it's kind of like actually, and you can really, logically, so the whole physicality of the world had changed. The geography of the world changed. The atmosphere changed. The soil had changed. Everything had changed. And this is all new now. And they got to figure this out. And so God teaches Noah. There's a whole new level of diseases that are coming on now. This is the thing. And so Noah entreats the Lord, and Noah is taught about, and this is the root story of where these herbs that are for the healing of the nations, the curative properties is coming forward, okay? So God gives to Noah this idea of the healing of diseases through herbs, through plant-based things that are on the earth, okay? And the flip side, he also warns them about the seductions of them. Now so this is what I'm saying. Whenever you get into this category, there's two sides of the same coin. And we know this. I wish I had an example at the top of my fingers, and I don't really. But some plants, if you eat the wrong part of it, it can poison you. Some plants have hugely curative properties and really healthy benefits, but you better know what you're doing before you dive into it, okay? This knowledge God gave to, in this word seductions that's used over and over in a couple of the texts, this is where the root of this word is the word, Pharmakeia, which is the word we get for sorceries and witchcrafts, and that word morphs into a whole world in which was known to the ancients. And so there's two sides. I'm telling you, there's two sides to every coin, even in plant life. There's good properties to plants, and there's destructive properties to plants. So he was teaching Noah how to heal using the herbs of the earth. Noah wrote this out in a book, which he gave to his eldest son Shem, so he could learn the use of medicine. Now, this gets in, there's a lot, I won't even get in there. Okay, so the point is this, but let me read it to you in Jubilees. So it's Jubilees chapter 10. This is right from the verse. It says, and God explained to Noah all the medicines of their diseases together with their seductions. And it's talking again about the plants. How he might heal them with herbs of the earth. So he's not really getting rid of the problem per se. He's just telling them, well, fine, but this is what you can do to heal it, to combat it, to give yourself a defense against it. And Noah wrote down all things in a book as he was instructed concerning every kind of medicine. And then it says, and he gave all that he had written to Shem, his eldest son, for he loved him exceedingly above all his sons. And real implication really is Shem was the one who walked in the spiritual inheritance of Noah. Shem is the one who got it. And so I'm sure there was a special relationship and bond between them. Now, the thing that's really interesting, when I was reading, there's another book that I like to read, and I suggest people read it. It's a highly esteemed Jewish work from the turn of the century. Louis Ginsburg wrote a book called Legend of the Jews, and he sort of did this huge compilation of all the different legends and it's fascinating reading, okay? And you get so much information. Because I don't necessarily think a legend is an untruth. I really don't. I just think it's something that's really kind of out of our paradigm sometimes, so we just don't know what to do with it. But these people lived. So something just gotta think about, Noah lived 950 years. That's a long time. And he must have had unbelievable genetics. I mean, this is in the beginning where people are really still kind of, the whole human race is still kind of a little bit fresh. Now we're 6,000 years later. I do ascribe to this concept that our DNA, which is our code, which is sort of getting a little, it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. We're kind of at the end of the age. But I do believe that in the beginning and so even with these unbelievable genetics, this is why sometimes in mythology, you just have to kind of put it into context here. These are not our forefathers, oh my gosh, people, whatever. You go study it out, it's fascinating. Even these people were having problems, and they needed to have some real answers. So God, in his gracious mercy for his remnant seed, was doing this. Now, this is what Louis Ginsburg and what he put together, and this is what is so fascinating, because I'm not making this up. Secular history testifies to this. What they don't tell you is the root story. Okay, so this is the story. God taught this knowledge to Noah. Noah wrote it down. It was taken by Shem. It was recorded. These people, this is the beginning of medicine. You know, the staff and then the medical symbol. This has a history. It goes back to here. All the medical understanding of the world starts here. Okay, now it's morphed and done tons of things, and some cultures have. All right, so let me get back to what Louis Ginsburg says. He's talking about the same story, and he says that that Noah was told the remedies, that at that time revealed to Noah all the remedies residing in plants, that he might resort to them at need. Noah recorded them in a book, which he transmitted to his son Shem. This is the source to which go back all the medical books, whence the wise men of India, Aram, Macedonia, and Egypt draw their knowledge. Now, the sages of India devoted themselves particularly to the study of curative trees and spices. The Arameans were well versed in the knowledge of the properties of grains and seeds, and they translated the old medical books into their language. The wise men of Macedonia were the first to apply medical knowledge practically. While the Egyptians, and now we're getting into like the flip side a little bit, the Egyptians sought to effect cures by means of magic, of Pharmakeia. So in other words, that plant, so by means of magic arts and by means of astrology, and they taught the Midrash of the Chaldees, composed by Kangar, the son of Ur, the son of Kesed. Now let me tell you, these people were not confused about the lineage that went back to, they could trace it all the way back, and there are books out there that do this, and we've just been told that we just don't know how to get back to Noah. That just can't possibly be. Well, that's just a flat out lie. Hello. These ancient writers, you study the ancient historians, they knew exactly the lineage of the people groups. It's not hidden knowledge, really. You just have to kind of. So, anyways, so what we have here, medical skills spread further and further. Okay. So I have to tell you a couple things. The Chaldees, that is who the Kangar, the son of Ur, the son of Kesed. This is one of the sons of Shem. This comes out of one of the Shemite branch, okay, as they were multiplying. Chaldees, these are the people that really actually founded Babylon. Babylon is older than Egypt. So there is always been a propaganda war. There's always been uses for good and for evil, and I'll get into more of that. But this is what is so interesting. Now, today on the radar, okay, one of the things is because this is part of my reason for delving. I have a personal issue in this. Someone in my close family has a chronic illness. There's so much chronic illness in the West today that does not need to be here. Okay, so I've done a lot of research. So I've started connecting these dots. But India, it's confirmed. There's a whole school of medicinal living and healing called Ayurveda, I hope I'm saying that right, Ayurveda, which comes out of India. Okay, the term Ayurveda combines the Sanskrit words for life and Veda, which means science and knowledge. Ayurvedic medicine, as practiced in India, is one of the oldest systems of medicine in the world. These people probably never, this is right out of a medical journal. I took this right out of the medical journals, and I wish I could tell you which one. I was Googling pretty fast, okay? Many Ayurvedic practices predate written records and were handed down by word of mouth. These ancient books, known as the Great Trilogy, were written in Sanskrit more than 2,000 years ago and are considered the main texts on Ayurvedic medicine. But and here's another, Ayurvedic is the ancient medical system of India. Here's another quote. Ayurvedic medicine, also known as Ayurveda, is one of the world's oldest holistic, whole-body healing systems, and it developed thousands of years ago in in India. And here I read you from that they were particularly, see, this you understand, that the sages were devoted, then says, particularly the study of curative trees and spices. That's totally plant-based. That's totally herbal medicine understanding. And the Arameans with grains and seeds. And it's proven, this knowledge, they knew where they got it. Now, and they had it. And this is what I've studied with the history. We have great information, it gets lost. We're in a war. Think of the Dark Ages. I mean, so much understanding was lost. Boom. And then, conveniently, it comes back. Oh, we just discovered Plato in the Renaissance. And people can't figure that out. Well, it's just the enemy had attacked. He just decided to like release it all again or whatever. But this understanding has been around. It's thousands of years old. It's documented. And India today, this diet, and that's why a lot of people are discovering it today, because people are just at their wits' end. How are they going to get rid of all these chronic conditions? Because technically, Western medicine can only go so far. It cannot cure it, because the definition of a chronic illness is that it cannot be cured. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what causes it, and they don't know how to fix it. Okay, but India and these have the lowest rate of these chronic illnesses in the world. So, you connect the dots. To me, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. Some of these spices, they're turmeric and curry and ginger. These are herbs, people. These are spices. They have huge and maybe not as quickly at the end of the game, but if you lived with this diet your whole life, you're protected, you're good, your body is strong, your metabolism can handle things that come at you from demonic attacks, whatever you want to call it, okay, or bad living, whatever, okay? So we have to understand it, and like chia seeds. This is another thing if you're in a health food, they just discovered, it's like they just discovered chia seeds. That these are those power-packed little seeds on the planet, and they got more protein, they'll just make your little engine. But that's ancient knowledge and understanding is coming straight from Noah through Shem and down through the ages. And other cultures have known that forever, and they've been living on those chia seeds. Here in the West, we just discovered them, it's really kind of funny. But, so this is what happens, okay? And this is my opinion, but this is what I think we have here today in the West, okay? Because we really do have a health problem. All right, here, I'll just give you some statistics. The CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control, has stated that 75% of health care spending goes to treating preventable chronic diseases, most of which are diet-related. It does not take a rocket scientist to connect these dots, people, really and truly, okay? A new study has found a link between Western diet, high fat, dairy, sweets, fried food, processed and red meat, and higher chances of being diagnosed with a chronic illness in old age and dying early. Like I said, I didn't write this stuff. I didn't write any of this stuff. So, okay, according to the nurses, here's a good one. According to the Nurses' Health Study and Nurses' Health Study 2 and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study, okay, 3 highly esteemed documented controlled studies, the largest, most extensive studies ever conducted on health and nutrition, the foods that contribute the most to weight gain are French fries, potato chips, sweetened sugar drinks, red meats, processed meats, sweets and desserts, refined grains, fried foods, 100% fruit juice, and butter. And these were published in June. Results were published in June 2011 in the New England Journal of Medicine. So this is the Western diet. Okay, so now, and it's killing us. It's killing us, people. And look, okay, I mean, okay, now, let me say this. This is what I think is going on, all right? I've laid out the case for you. This is not God's fault, okay? So quit blaming the Lord, okay? We had this knowledge. We decided, you know, and the Jews understand it. In Deuteronomy and Leviticus, with Moses and Joshua is going to land, this is the whole point. You know, people make fun of the dietary laws of the Jews, this whole thing, and that, oh, we just don't need to be doing this anymore, and people just don't get it. Oh, you know, why do you got to watch dietary laws? See, there's such a deep understanding in this thing. But in Joshua, or in Leviticus, and in Numbers, and in Deuteronomy, and it's stated over and over again, Moses told the whole people this. It's called the blessings and the curses. Joshua reiterated the whole thing. Actually, before they went in the promised land, they each stood on two mountains on either side. This is a great story. And they recited, one side recited the blessings and one side recited the curses. And you know, it's a great story. Acoustically, they all heard it and they all were on the same page. They went in with their, I love this phrase, eyes wide open, okay? You know, the rest is history, but in this blessings and curses is this concept. God says, look, if you do what I say, if you walk with me, if you keep the laws and the statutes, everything, the whole skinny that I just gave to Moses, if you keep this, you will always, always and always walk in blessing, prosperity, health. You will always be the top dog. In other words, I can esteem you among the nations because it'll be evident you're my people, you're following my ways. And you know, unfortunately this didn't happen. The flip side is, he said, look, if you don't, the curses come on you. Now, this is one of the things you have to understand about the way the Old Testament is written and stop getting tripped up all the time. I mean, let's grow up here, people. It says, let me just give you an example here. He says this is in Leviticus 26, verse 14. But he goes again, punishment for disobedience. But if you will not listen to me and carry out these commands, and if you reject my decrees and abhor my laws and fail to carry out all my commandments and so violate my covenant, then I will do this to you. I will bring upon you sudden terror, wasting diseases and fever that will destroy your sight and drain away your life. It goes on and on. Then it's kind of reiterated again. Let me just read these again. The Lord, this is now in Deuteronomy 28:20. It says, the Lord will send on you curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you put your hand to until you are destroyed and come to sudden ruin because of the evil you have done in forsaking him. This is Joshua trying to tell the people, the Lord will plague you with diseases until he has destroyed you from the land you are entering to possess. The Lord will strike you with, and remember these words, we're going to come back to them, wasting disease, with fever and inflammation, with scorching heat and drought, and blight and mildew, which, now these things that I've studied, these are really diseases. Pestilence is a word that really in its category, is in the disease category, okay? But the point is, it isn't God doing this. I mean, it's not like he's just like, this is the result. If you're not going to listen to God and you're going to go off on your own, this is a big bad world out there. We have huge enemies. They are going to take you, this is like wild beasts and just devour you. So, I mean, here is a nation, the most prosperous nation in the world. And when we really are.